Hey everyone, we all know that finding a place to call home here in California can be a real challenge. But what if the challenge isn't just the market? What if something unfair is happening? Well, today we're going to break down California's fair housing laws so you know exactly what your rights are and how you're protected. So, let me ask you a question right off the bat. Could you really spot housing discrimination if it was happening to you? You might think, oh, of course. But honestly, it can be way more subtle than you'd imagine. That's why knowing the law is so important, whether you're renting an apartment or buying a house. You see, at its heart, California law is based on one simple but really powerful idea. Everyone has the right to choose where they live. That's the principle. But what does that actually mean in the real world? Let's dig in. Okay, so first, let's just get the basics down. What is fair housing, and who exactly do these laws protect? The foundation for all these laws is something called a protected class. Now, that sounds a little technical, I know, but it's actually pretty simple. It just means any group of people who share a common characteristic, like their race or religion. The law basically puts up a shield to guard these groups against discrimination. So who exactly is in a protected class in California? Well, the list is pretty extensive, which is a good thing. It covers your race and color, of course, also your national origin, your religion, and your sex. And here's a big one, familial status. That's just a formal way of saying you can't be denied housing just because you have kids. The laws also protect you based on a disability, your marital status, and your age. Bottom line, it is illegal for someone to refuse to rent or sell to you based on any of these things, period. Okay, so that's who is protected. Now let's talk about the actual laws that give these protections their power, because it's not just one rule, it's a whole system working together. Think about it like this. Here in California, you've got this two-layered shield protecting you. At the national level, there's the Federal Fair Housing Act. That sets the minimum standard for the whole country. But then, California adds another layer of protection with its own powerful state laws, like the UNRRA Act, that are often even stronger. And this is absolutely crucial. This responsibility isn't just on property owners. The law is crystal clear that if a landlord tells their real estate agent something discriminatory, like don't rent to families, the agent is legally required to refuse that listing. They can't just say they were following orders. So what does this stuff actually look like in the real world? Let's break down some of the specific things that are completely illegal, and sometimes they can be surprisingly sneaky. The Fair Housing Act lists a whole range of things you just can't do. I mean, the obvious one is flat out refusing to rent or sell to someone, but it's also illegal to set different terms, like charging one person a higher security deposit, or to lie and say a place is already rented when it's not. Even the ads are regulated. You can't put up an ad that says something like, singles preferred, because that discriminates against families. Now let's talk about a specific tactic called steering. This is when an agent tries to push a buyer toward or away from a neighborhood based on their race or another protected status. You know, like only showing Hispanic families homes in Hispanic neighborhoods. It's totally illegal because it limits people's choices and keeps communities segregated. Then there's an even uglier practice called blockbusting. This is just predatory. It's when agents try to scare homeowners into selling cheap by telling them that people of a certain race are moving in and property values are about to tank. They're literally creating panic to profit from prejudice. And you guessed it, it's illegal. Now, these laws aren't just suggestions on a piece of paper. They have real teeth. So let's look at who enforces them and what actually happens to people who break the rules. There are two main agencies you should know about. At the federal level, you've got the Department of Housing and Urban Development, which everyone just calls HUD. And here in California, we have our own agency, the Department of Fair Employment and Housing, or DFEH. These are the folks who investigate complaints. And the penalties can be really severe. For a third violation within 7 years, we're talking about a civil penalty of up to $50,000. And get this, that's on top of any damages they might have to pay to the person they discriminated against. So yeah, this is taken very seriously. And if you think this stuff doesn't really happen, listen to this. This is a direct quote from an actual corrective action letter sent to a real estate agent right here in California. It lays out the violation in plain, shocking terms. It's a stark reminder that this isn't just theory. It happens, it gets documented, and there are consequences. So this brings us to what might be the most important question of all. What can you do about it? If you think you've been a victim of housing discrimination, there is a clear path to take action. Let's walk through it. First things first, you need to know about the timeline. You have 1 full year from the date the violation happened to file a complaint with HUD. But, and this is a big but, everyone will tell you to file it as soon as you possibly can, while all the details are still fresh in your mind. The process itself is really straightforward. First, you file the complaint, and you can do that online, by mail, or even just over the phone. Second, HUD gets the ball rolling. They'll notify the other person and start their investigation. Third, they'll try to mediate a solution that works for everyone. That's called conciliation. And finally, if no agreement can be reached, the case can go to a formal hearing or even a federal court.
So we'll end with this, because making sure housing is fair isn't just a job for the government. It's a responsibility for all of us, for the whole community. It doesn't matter if you're a renter, a homeowner, or a real estate agent. Understanding these rights is how we build better, fairer communities for everyone. So the real question is, what role will you play?